Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blessing so far, and I feel very, very, very privileged. Um, Jeff has been talking about miracles, and I think every single one of our lives, there are miracles too, because there was no way we could have been standing before God the way we were, the way we are. Thank you. So it's an honor to be here, but at the same time, I feel so unworthy of the call. From my 15 to my 18, I had the opportunity to practice track and field with a really, really talented sprint team. So I was a sprinter myself, and I found the track and field world like no other. It's really like I don't know how it is in America, but in France, if I think it's a real family. We get together and we just love our sport. I really like the atmosphere of it. And watching track and field on TV for me was like a big deal. And then one day, at home, I received a letter from the Track and Field National Federation telling me that my results actually qualified me to run in the Stade de France, in Paris, that is, for the opening of the Golden League, which is an international meeting. It's an international event. So as you can imagine, I was pumped. I went. I secretly was injured, but who cared? I went, and it was just amazing. All the people selected there was just in awe. We were in awe because we were able to warm up with all those famous people, and we were warming up on the same stadium that they did. So there were Atto Boldon, Maurice Green, Christine Aron, la crème de la crème of the track and field world. Do you say that?
We don't know that. If they're French, we don't know them.
Yeah, but do you say this expression, la crème de la crème? Yeah, you do? Okay. Nice. So we were all together in this super cool ambience. And the stars were coming in on the field one after the other. Pictures were being taken, words of encouragement, laugh, running, obviously, dashing, etc. Only one person was missing at that point. And everybody was waiting for her. Her name was Marion Jones. And she finally arrived. But the thing is, she had bodyguards all around her to prevent anybody from disturbing her. And that was a real bummer. So no pictures were allowed, no words, no nothing, no question, no sympathy, no nothing. She was just warming up by herself. And she definitely was not partying with us. And to my eyes, Marion Jones was a star. I'm like a huge fan of what she did before I think she got convinced of cheating, right? Doping. So to my eyes, before that, she was a star. But all of a sudden, she was not anymore. Because she was not partying with us. That little moment around her totally changed my opinion, my perspective about her. Because unlike others, that day, she was untouchable. She was unreachable. She was unapproachable. And I believe that if we understand today's biblical text and thus apply it today, I think it will change the way people will look at us too, but the other way around. So let's turn together to Philippians 2. Philippians 2, I'm looking at verse 5, and we're going to go to verse 11. Philippians 2, 5. I'm reading in NIV Bible. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Here we do have a letter addressed that Paul addresses to the Philippians, and Paul just loved those people. He has a special connection, a special bond to that people that as they responded quickly and cheerfully to the gospel call. The thing about Paul and about God in general is that he knows that until you're not arrived, well, you are not arrived. Even though you're doing good in the faith, you shall continue to press on, to persevere, to keep running the race until you get to the finish line. And Paul always has a word of encouragement like that for his listeners, for his readers, so that they can come to master what they cannot master yet in their Christian's life. And weirdly enough, because we are so fragile, even an encouragement could be discouraging at times. Does it do that to you? I mean, come on. Almost there. You've got 3 more miles to go. What? That much? I mean, come on. I can't hold it anymore. And I think that's the main reason why I was a sprinter and not a marathon runner. Because I was, and still am to this day, very mentally poor. And encouraging me in such a way would lead absolutely nowhere. And in the text, I believe it could be one practical reason why Paul urges his readers to remember who Jesus Christ was and is, so that I can rethink the efforts I can do because of who I am. And I do believe that in the text we just read, there is a question of identity. A question of knowing who God is and knowing who we are. This is the absolute secret of John Calvin's theology. Well, 2 things you need to know, and you'll be good. First one, know who God is. Second one, know who you are. And I think it goes vice versa. This is what I want to meditate on with you this morning, those 2 things. But before going any further, and assuming this text has been preached before, a quick disclaimer just to say I'm not going to do some kind of expository preaching today, but rather I'll do my best to make things practical, I would say, by reminding us a few things. Maybe there will be nothing new for you today, because you've heard that passage preached so many times. But it just means that it would be applying time for you. And if by grace you get something out of this message that you never did before, then praise be to God. Now, the first thing I would like us to remember this morning is that when we talk about God's love for us, when we talk about God's love for us, we should really be talking about God's mystery of love. What I mean by that is that we tend to be way too quick affirming that God loves us. Well, what? He doesn't? Well, yes, He does. More than we could ever imagine. But let's not talk about it like it was something God owed us. You know, we are so absorbed into things, church things. We are so into it that we tend to forget, or we tend not to come close enough to the signification of His love for us. And there is one thing that I would like to remember every single day, but every single day I fail. I fail to remember that God did not have to do that. I fail to remember that God didn't have to do that. What do you mean He didn't have to do that? If He is love, He just was moved by love, right? To save us. That's what love does, doesn't it? It saves. Yes. But what about the fallen angels? Is God saving them? It doesn't seem He is. Does that make God less loving? Pretty sure it does not. There is justice in His love. Against you, you only have a sin and done what is evil in your sight, so that you are proved right when you speak and justified when you judge. This is Psalm 51. And the same applies to us. We have to understand that God did not have to love us, nor to save us. But the fact is that He did. We are thankful for that. Why did He do that? Well, that's the mystery. That's the mystery of it all. You know, we oftentimes, I don't know if it is the same thing here, but we oftentimes quote, John 3:16? God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, right? You know what I like to do? I don't know if you did that before, Jeff, or Mike. But I like to think about this in the reverse too. So that we understand that God so loved His Son that He gave Him the world. Did you get that? God so loved His Son that He gave Him the world. I'm God's possession in Christ. I think this is mystery that leads us to worship, that leads us to praise. God so loved His Son, Jesus, that He gave Him the world, and I'm part of that. I've been given to Jesus. I'm His. But this is a mystery. This is the mystery of God's love for us. You know, there's a French TV show that really has been trending in France. It was called Rendez-vous en terre inconnue, which would translate to the unknown. I don't know if that exists here, but the concept was simple. You select a famous person, famous people. You put him or her into a plane, and they don't know where they're going. You know, they have their eyes covered up in the airport, so they have to kind of blind walk. But the goal is for them to go to another country and to discover another people's way of life. And most of the time, those people are going to countries where it is not our kind of modern type way of life. What I mean by that is that they go to countries, kids, they wouldn't know what a toy is, for example, or they wouldn't know what television is, okay? So those famous people are hosted in a family for a few days. And so they live like the people they roasted in, and they discover their worlds before going back home and having lived a few days heartbreaking experience, I guess, So emotional, so touchy. And here is Paul telling the Philippians that in order to save us, Jesus did not leave behind the riches of the heavenly glory only for a few days. It was not just a short visit to observe how well we can do without our full potential. It was not just a visit to make him think, oh, look at you. Is this how you really live? Poor you. But it was a whole life lived like the ones we have, and a death like no other. A death like there has never been before and never will be. The one who was rich became poor. Wait, what? Became the poorest to save the poor. From the garden to the tomb, the one who was sinless has been treated like sin. On the cross, the one who has since eternity said, Father, in this ever so sweet proximity, unity, and intimacy, had to distantly shout, my God, because of the weight of the world's eternal sin he had on his shoulders, for which reason his Father couldn't be seen or felt or heard like he was before. All the things he didn't have to leave. All the things he didn't have to leave. All the things that terribly troubled him to the very point of death. That's Matthew 26. All the things that terribly troubled him to the point of death, he went through for us to live eternally, so that we would receive his eternal love. This is the example set before us to remind us that we can do the same. We can do the same to serve others, emptying ourselves to serve others. The question is, can we? Well, obviously, there is only one cross. It's Jesus's. Its reasons and consequences are unique. But the truth is, the principle of such humility and such devotion still applies to us. And this is where it gets tricky. The principle of such humility and devotion applies to us not because we are rich of anything, but because we are poor. Did Jesus come to die on the cross because we were ever so rich of deeds, merits, and glory before him? No. He came because we were ever so poor. What difference did the cross make? Did it make a difference at all? I think the answer is yes, absolutely. There is a transformation that happened in our hearts. I've been forgiven. I've been set free of the devil's hands. I'm assured to live eternally instead of dying eternally. That's a huge change. But the answer is also no. It didn't make any change at all. The cross did. It didn't change anything. Do I have something that I can boast in front of my God today? Am I finally someone in front of him? Someone that actually counts? Someone that would weigh something in his balance, in his scale? The answer is no. by myself, I still have no riches in front of him. I'm only rich of the love he pours in me. I'm only rich of what I can graciously receive from him. As John Piper puts it, I'm not in hell. It's a good day. By myself, I'm poor. And when I understand my spiritual poverty, this is when I can reach out to people, forgetting about myself. It is not the me first, so I can get the reward anymore, but it would be more like a, hey, I have nothing anyway. Can I serve you? Can I minister to you? Can I love you? Can I do something for you? Because like Paul, we would be considering everything else as a waste. And we have to understand that it's a mindset. It's a mindset there is before us. First, I wanted to say, because of this passage in Philippians 2, I wanted to say, become poor. Become poor just as Christ became poor for us. I wanted to say that. Become poor. But wait. There is no becoming poor at all. Because poor is what we are. And that's a mindset. I have to leave all the pride I have behind. Because I think I am someone so oftentimes. And this is what prevents me from entering into other people's lives, doesn't it? Now, let's go the other way around for a minute. What if you think that you are still someone? Someone that counts, Is that so bad after all? Is that so bad? Let me start by saying this. Everybody, and I mean everybody, at some point has wanted, wants, or will want to be someone. When I hear myself, there is not a moment when, in front of others, or even by myself, because I'm so twisted, not a moment in which I do not want to be someone that counts. Someone that makes other people go, oh, he's good. Am I the only one here? And this is so today's society's message, isn't it? People, they want us to believe that we are good. They let you know, you are good. What about your children? Well, they're good too. No need to spank them. Don't need to, yell at them. Children are good. Because we are good. But what they do not know is that after Genesis 1, and we read that God created all things, man and woman are like, do you say the cherry on the cake? That's what it was. Everything was good. And then on the sixth day, when men and women were created, God said, that's very good. So we're here thinking, we're good. But eventually, after Genesis 1, would come Genesis 3. Or am I wrong? And thus we read, you will not surely die, the serpent said to the women. For God knows that when you eat of the fruit, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. In other words, don't you want to be someone? We all know Adam and Eve's answer to that question, and the same answer we would give today. And we know oh too well where wanting to be someone leads. It leads to death. It doesn't lead to entering into other people's life for a good impact, right? But it leads you to having bodyguards for a track and field party with a bunch of kids not understanding the situation here. I've never witnessed that myself, but I've been told that there is a pastor in Paris, in some kind of mega church. He is literally carried. He is literally carried by his bodyguards on his way to the pulpit so that he wouldn't touch the ground. It doesn't have to go that far, of course, but it always starts with something more down to earth, maybe a little bit like Luke chapter 18. The Pharisee stood up and prayed by himself, "Oh God, I thank you that I'm like no other man. Robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector here. I fast twice a week, and give a tenth of all I get." When you start comparing yourself like that, in that superiority, you know you are in the way of becoming someone. That's no good. We all know the end of that parable. Or the other way around, when you are scared by other people's strength, scared by their qualities, by their gifts. I call this the Pharaoh syndrome. Exodus 1:9. "Look," he said to his people, "the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country." When you want to be the most powerful by crushing others, you know you are in the way of becoming someone. You know that you are going to be unable to love, but so able to hate. But God emptied himself for us because we were so empty. And I think grasping this idea, this reality, will make me stop considering my worldly pride and my worldly power, my worldly views by myself. And thus it will start getting this humility for others going. Christ's life and death is the core of this humility exhortation. And this is the reason why Paul takes time to put it into words for the Philippians people. Now, if you've been following me until here, although speaking in tongues for you, there's a good chance you might think I'm this kind of Christian who thinks that people shouldn't be tempted to be someone, but rather should master this humility course in order to be a bunch of no ones. If you think that, please forgive me, because this is not where I'm going. We are someone in God's eyes. Someone worthy of dying for. But we shouldn't be someone as someone who boasts in himself before God. And in this matter, I have repeated that we were poor. Now, sorry, the because it gets tricky here again. But in my opinion, poor doesn't mean cheap. Poor doesn't mean cheap. To me, poor means that you have nothing to offer God. But it doesn't mean that you are of no value at all. Cheap. And reading the Bible, I think we can find this idea everywhere. Written in every man, in every woman's story. And such poverty is one of the privileges God gives us. This poverty is a privilege because it is that very poverty that God uses for His own glory. He does, amazingly enough. The poverty of people recognizing that they had nothing if it wasn't God's grace. So you are not no ones. You are not of no value at all. You are the happy people God uses for His glory. As long as Christ is your example. By this poverty, you are the happy people that God calls co-workers in His salvation plan. And what I mean by that, I'm not only talking about Mike, I'm not only talking about Jeff when I say co-worker. I'm talking about every single one of us in this room. Because God delights using the weak to shame the strong. And all the Bible stories, they do go this way. Why do you think there are so many stories with, how do you say that, women who could not give birth? Why is that? I mean, that's such a pattern. You would read through the Old Testament and to the New Testament, and you would say, another one? She can't have babies? That's a pattern. Because God uses the weak to shame the strong. And the people used in the Bible are like us, sharing the same poverty that makes them boast into the Lord and into the Lord only. And this is why I love the Bible so much, because when I read it, I could go, oh, David sinned, that's me. That's my story too. I mean, how many of you have read the Quran before? What would you see in the Quran? Not that. In the Quran, you would see perfect people. They would not be reaching out to you. They're too far, they're too great, they're too high. But in the Bible, we see God using people like us. And He delights doing so, to shame the strong. Is this my way of understanding entering in? Well, at least I think this might be the first step to it. If I think too highly of myself, I will not be able to entering into other people's life and world, nor will want to understand it. On the contrary, if I come to realize how poor I am, without nothing to lose, this will help me find an interest in others that are as poor as me, whether they are Christians or not. Christian people, please do not think that we are superior to other people. We're not, because we're poor. I know that there are parts of the world where you want to, if you want to connect with other people, you must first enter their homes. But the thing is that I don't know in what country this is, but they live under tents, like big tents, and they live under those, and they have ridiculously small doors. That means that if you want to go into their homes, you have to get low. And the meaning is simple. Leave all pride aside if you want to get in touch. Do not come to moralize us. Do not come to tell us how small we are and then how big you are. Do not tell us how we are supposed to do things. But once you are actually in the house, under the tent, we will know that you made yourself like one of us, that we are equal, and that you really want to get in touch with us with no agenda, with no second thoughts. And while preparing the sermon, I found a sentence I thought it would be good to quote. I do not know the answer, the author, sorry, but it says, "What you say will be important to us when we are important to you." What you say will be important to us when we are important to you. Is this the attitude we have with the people around us? Earlier this year, I was talking with one of my church members, and we were talking about one person who came to the Alpha course that we did. And this guy I'm talking about is an artist. He has no Christian background at all. He had difficulties in relationship, etc. But my friend from church is his colleague because they work in the same school together as teachers. And my friend, she said to me that she really made efforts to speak with a guy, you know. But at some point she said, I have absolutely nothing in common with this man. And so, you know, I just can't go every day with weather talks. And knowing the two people, I thought, well, yeah, they really have nothing in common. That was so different. But guess what? It's just the right opportunity to ask him about his world, isn't it? And the thing he likes and why he likes them. What is he keen on? Well, the guy is keen on drawing. He's an artist. He draws a lot, very, very dark. Darkness. There's a lot of darkness in his drawings. But it's still beautiful. I mean, the way it's done, but it's very dark. So, I would be thinking, don't just stand there thinking that your standards are way over this kind of thing. Well, yes, you can tell him, well, that's not the kind of drawing you like. Don't be a hypocrite. But ask him about the things he likes about his drawings. Ask him how he does it, the technique behind it, the story behind it. Why? Well, because this is how that person is going to get connected with you. That's how he's going to think differently. And maybe say, well, I've never been asked that question before. That's it. That's entering into me. Take the risk to graciously listen to others. And you'll see that they will too take the risk to listen to you and to ask you eventually, what moves you? What's about you? Oh, I've heard you go to church, right? How's that like? One last example here. In my previous church, so I went to seminary after being here. So I went to seminary, and after graduating, I ended up being involved in a church where I first pastored there. That was my first time being a pastor. And there was this man, he was a little tough on me in the beginning of my ministry. You know what he would do? He would actually ask me to come and have a coffee with him on Mondays. You know why Monday? I think you know what it means. He would tell me every little thing wrong or not rightly put in my sermons. And because I was young, I didn't like it. And I thought the guy was just mean to just pay me a coffee and just to empty his bag on me like that. But one day, I asked him, could I come one day on one of your construction sites to discover what you do? The guy is like he's a hugely talented plasterer. Like he works with plaster in some kind of very artistic way, and he's huge in that. And that's a job that disappears now in France, but he's huge. So I asked him that question, could I come with you on one of your construction sites? He said yes. So I went. He showed me all he did, even taught me a few things, even though I'm so clumsy with my hands. And from that day, having a coffee with someone haven't been nicer than with him. And his presence and participation in the church evolved greatly as well. And going with him and letting him teach me, I think, was definitely the game changer. And you can imagine how happy I was to be his poor student. And God's happy and weak and happy co-worker in that situation. Because I was poor, but that was for his glory. Is that what entering in could be? Could well be to me. And I think in the end, it all comes down to how poor you are and how much you are ready to learn. Moses had to learn. He had to learn on comfort, coming out of his Egyptian palace. Paul had to learn of the letting go of the teachings of old, the Pharisees. And according to this text in Philippians 2, and also a text in Hebrews 5 that I'm going to quote, Jesus had to learn obedience. Although he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. And once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. This is what I have to continually meditate on as I want to serve God. I have so much progress to do. And thus I want to leave us all together with this last question. A question that could sound like a movie quote, but hopefully it is much more than that. The question in the end is, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? If you want a real, honest answer to that question, I know a place. I know a place where you could get this answer for free. And this place will tell you everything you need to know about yourself. Is there someone here desiring to know where this place is? The cross is that place. This is the place where you'll know about yourself. That you are fully loved. That you are someone worthy of dying for. But at the same time, that's a place that will tell you again and again and again that you are ever so poor in front of God. But that's understanding this kind of poverty that will help you love Him even more, and love Him by ministering to others, by entering into their lives as well. May God work in our hearts so that we can come to truly and fully understand it. And to close, I'm just going to quote what we all sang earlier, because we said words that are important. We said, Hallelujah. All I have is Christ. Hallelujah. Jesus is my life. Let's pray together. There is no place like this one. There is no place like the cross. And we would like to just stay there, kneeling before you, trying to understand, to grasp something of your sacrifice, of the mystery of your love for us. I want to be there on that hill. Understanding that I was worth dying for. And that sounds so weird in my mouth. But this is actually what you did. You love me that much. You love us that much. We want to thank you for that love. May you change our hearts so that this love would make a difference in our lives too. Continuously until the day you come. But please, Lord, help us to understand that we are ever so poor in front of you, rich of your grace, but poor of merits and deeds. And we want to pray as we come to you that you would continuously give us what we need, this understanding including of our poverty, so that we can go and enter into other people's life, that we would be able to love them as much as you loved us. Thank you again, Father, for your word. Thank you for this place, the cross. And we know that the cross is empty because you are risen. And we long for to embrace you. We long for to know you perfectly. So may your kingdom come. Amen.